Foreign Minister Lavrov, welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
We're here at an extraordinarily difficult and painful time. What's happening in Syria has got the world very, very upset. In the United Kingdom, people are saying that this is the worst bombardment of civilians since the Nazis bombed Guernica during the Spanish Civil War. John Kerry has said that Russia and the regime, the Syrian regime, owe the world more than an explanation about why they keep hitting hospitals, medical facilities, women and children. Why are you doing that?
Well, I think all these statements have to be verified because we, just as in the case of accusations regarding hackers' attacks against Democratic Party, we never got any confirmation of the accusations which we received. We have been asking the facts. We have insisted on the investigation of the attack on the humanitarian convoy in Aleppo on the 19th of October. And what my friend and new colleague Boris Johnson was saying was absolutely politicking, not
he was accusing Russia of having hit.
Oh yeah, well, in the usual arrogant way. Well, Boris is the jack of all trades, as you know. Having served as a mayor, he said he was a very good friend of Russia, and he was very famous at the Russian festivals in London. Now I think he's getting ready for becoming some maybe internationally recognized prosecutor general in The Hague, especially after our British colleagues decided that the slogan "Yes, we can" should be additioned by "and you cannot," when they decided to remove their military from the jurisdiction of European Human Rights Convention, as you know. So it's some kind of clarity must be introduced in all these discussions. We are open for these discussions. We never cut connections. We want to discuss things and to arrive at some truth instead of accusing each other without any justification.
Well, with respect, most of the world believes, having seen what's going on, having satellite imagery, knowing that there are only two forces with the kind of air power around Aleppo, that is you and the Syrians with the barrel bombs, believe that you are involved and at the very least you are not stopping the Syrian Air Force and the barrel bombs. So again, I need to ask you, on behalf of the international community, why is it that Russia is targeting civilian infrastructure or allowing the Syrians to do the same? And as you know, you are basically now being accused of war crimes.
Well, war crimes is something which we can discuss in the appropriate structures. There are internationally recognized procedures for this, and it's better to do this, to use them rather than the media, to make yourself more visible, which is the goal of quite a number of my colleagues, unfortunately. On the investigation of the humanitarian convoy attack, the United Nations Secretary General launched the investigation, and I strongly insist those who have any information related to what happened, they should respect the investigation and submit the information to the Secretary General of the United Nations. On the demands, you know, for to stop fighting in Aleppo, you know, when the an-Nusra and the people who are next to it in eastern Aleppo in August and September categorically blocked all humanitarian supplies via Castello Road, by the way, which was bombed severely yesterday. But when they said that they would attack any humanitarian convoy coming via Castello Road in August and September, no one raised a finger, no one got worried. When I mention about this to John Kerry and others, they say, we don't remember that this was the case. I do remember, and it was actually, this ultimatum from Nusra and the like was made when we were meeting with Kerry in Geneva on 26th of August. But the key problem is the total inability of the United States and those who are also members of the coalition led by the Americans to separate the moderates from Nusra. This is the key priority registered in the Russian-American initiative. And the American colleagues, including John Brennan, as early as February this year, promised to us that they need two weeks to separate the moderates who cooperate with the coalition from Nusra. They never did. And now we have an impression that what the Americans and others really want is to spare Nusra and to keep it in case they decided to use Plan B.
Mr. Lavrov, I want to show you this picture.
Sure.
This went viral in August. This is a little boy. He's got a name. It's called Omran Dakni. She's 5 years old. This is not a terrorist. This is a boy who is surrounded in besieged and bombarded Aleppo. What do you say to the civilians who are simply asking for the right to not be bombed? That is a war crime, sir.
Well, as I said, the war crimes must be investigated.
But what do you say to people like that?
Well, it's a tragedy. It's really a tragedy, and they must insist that the moderates who want to protect them, they must separate themselves from Nusra.
So can I ask you about that? Because you talk about the US-Russia ceasefire, which collapsed after barely a week. We understand from reporting of people who've actually seen the paperwork that that was meant to be at least a week of a ceasefire. The two of you were meant to jointly separate. But the ceasefire collapsed before there was even a week to allow that.
You know, we insisted when Putin and Obama met in China on the 6th of September, I think, we insisted that before any ceasefire can be in place, they must deliver on their very old promise to separate the moderates from Nusra. Eventually, we agreed to accept the American approach, and we agreed to launch the ceasefire for 7 days, during which they must have finished the separation of the moderates from Nusra.
It was meant to be afterwards.
But 3 days.
How can you separate if there's no ceasefire? But
One second. And we launched the ceasefire only to see the American coalition attacking Deir ez-Zor, the positions of the Syrian army, 3 days in this 7-day period. They said it was a mistake, but I read a statement of the official Pentagon representative, some Colonel Thompson, who said that this mistaken strike, was being prepared for 2 full days and was based on very good intelligence. I don't think you can easily avoid this situation, because immediately after this mistaken strike, ISIL launched an offensive in Deir ez-Zor.
But you're surely not suggesting that the United States of America has any interest in empowering Islamic terrorists?
I don't know.
Mr. Foreign.
Look, Al-Qaeda was born from the American support of Mujahideens in Afghanistan. By the way, Nusra is another manifestation of Al-Qaeda according to the American list, according to the UN list. And ISIL was born after the American invasion of Iraq, as you know, I'm sure.
But sir, you don't really think that they encourage that? But anyway, let's not get into that. I need to ask you this.
I don't want to suspect them in encouraging terrorism, but what they do as regards Nusra makes me very, very suspicious.
Well, let me ask you. Clearly, you both have an interest, presumably, in getting some kind of peace, some kind of ceasefire. Do you still believe that there is a political solution to the war in Syria? Because now most people think that the very clever diplomat Sergei Lavrov has strung along John Kerry in order to be able to actually solidify facts on the ground on behalf of your client Bashar Assad and try to get Aleppo so that he has a whole load of populated areas.
Well, speaking of, you know, who is whose client or else, we want to have a meeting of the countries who have direct influence on what is going on the ground, either by way of being there on the invitation of the Syrian government and without being invited, or having influence through financing and supplying arms, supporting those who fight the government.
So you have a plan for another
I believe that we have to stop relying on, you know, some immigrants who present themselves as representatives of the opposition. And this capricious high negotiating committee, I believe, has proven that it is absolutely irresponsible. And I am amazed that our Western friends who created the group called Friends of Syria keep insisting that this high negotiating committee is the only opposition group to talk to.
So you don't accept them anymore?
No, we accept them. We invited them. We want to meet with them. They, try to be important or to look important, and they refuse to meet with us until and unless Assad is gone, which is absolutely against the resolutions of the Security Council. But countries who have direct influence on the ground, they include, Russia and the United States, no doubt about this, but also 3 or 4 regional countries. And we would like to have a meeting in this narrow format, to have a business-like discussion, not another General Assembly-like debate.
When do you plan to have this?
Well, it is scheduled to be this coming Saturday.
So this is news?
Well, this is news which I hope will not just remain in use for a day or two, but which will launch a serious dialogue on the basis of the principles contained in the Russian-American deal, which was broadly welcomed, but which unfortunately was not launched, and I come back to the reasons. The violation of the ceasefire happened by the American coalition, who attacked the Syrian government, which they were not supposed to do, and which they said they would never plan. But the very interesting and very specific criteria, which was not respected by the United States, was the deal described in greatest detail regarding pulling back from the Castello Road. The government from one side of the road, the opposition from another side of the road. The distances for heavy weaponry, for the personnel were agreed. 1 kilometer, 1.5 kilometers, 3 kilometers, and so on and so forth. And when we tried to relaunch the ceasefire, there was a deal that this would be part of it. 3-day quiet, humanitarian deliveries via Castello Road, and the Americans said that they cannot make sure that the opposition pulls back, which made us believe that they're not so influential on the ground. That's why the participation of the regional powers is very important. I think this would be more instrumental than just talking to the United States.
Who do you mean by regional powers?
Well, several of them you would know.
Iran, Saudi Arabia,
Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, probably.
So this is for Saudi. We're going to continue our conversation. I want to ask you, before I move on to the US-Russia hacking scandal, which is crisis, about Syria finally. You said that you want more talks. What, though, is your military plan? Look, everybody says there's no military solution, but Russia looks like it is after a military solution. At the very least, to capture Aleppo, so that Assad has that in the waning days of the Obama administration. That is what the Americans believe. Is that your plan?
No. We strongly supported, if you speak about Aleppo, we strongly supported the initiative by Staffan de Mistura, who proposed that Nusra should be invited to leave eastern Aleppo with the weapons, in dignity, as he put it. Even, with all the Security Council decisions regarding no deals with terrorists, we supported the Mistura's initiative for Nusra to leave, and those moderates who want to live together with Nusra, and for the moderates who would stay in Aleppo to sign up to the cessation of hostilities with the government. This was actually the crux of our draft resolution, which we put to a vote in the Security Council immediately after we blocked a very one-sided French paper. But this Russian draft, containing the support of de Mistura's proposal, was not supported and was voted against by all Western representatives and some other members of the Security Council. We still believe, and we are convinced, that this plan of de Mistura must be given a chance, and we are working on it now with the people on the ground, and I hope that very soon we can hear some news. Because without separating terrorists, without getting terrorists out, let them go to Idlib, which is the capital of Nusra, and be there, because it would be easier for all of us, to rejoin forces against these groups. But otherwise, I don't think you can really expect the army of Syria to stop fighting an-Nusra, who is trying to use civilians as the human shield. We make all necessary precautions, and we will continue to make all necessary precautions to advise the Syrian army to be very specific and very targeted, in its actions against an-Nusra. But an-Nusra cannot be tolerated, and we don't want to think, but we have to, we have to, that our partners in the region and in the United States and in Europe are trying to spare an-Nusra.
That's maybe what you think. There are obviously only about 900 an-Nusra people in Aleppo, according to the United Nations, 275,000 civilians, including women and children. I guess, the only question is, do you want to be on the wrong side of history on this? Do you want to be supporting the massacre of civilians in this kind of situation? And is that what will make Russia great again in the Middle East? To be building some kind of base, some kind of footprint there on the backs, as it's been said, of the broken bodies of children, women, and non-Christians?
Christian, it's exactly the 250,000 civilians about whom we think when we say that if it takes getting a couple of thousand of terrorists out of the city to save 250,000 lives, then let's do it. And that's why the Mistura plan is something which we must promote. By the way, we just 2 days ago, an-Nusra signed a deal with Ahrar al-Sham, which is not included on the United Nations terrorist list, and which we believe must be revisited, like a couple of dozens of other organizations whom Americans list as moderates. They are unacceptably joining forces with an-Nusra, not only in Aleppo, but in many other parts of Syria. So, when the Security Council decided on how to handle the Syrian crisis, there were several directions of international community action. One was counterterrorism. Another was a cessation of hostilities, humanitarian issues, and political process. And each of these directions must be addressed on its merits. There must be no preconditions, according to the Security Council. And regarding, being on the right or wrong side of history, or regarding, statements like whether Russia is a great country or whether Russia is a rogue state, with all respect, our Anglo-Saxon friends have centuries-old tradition to decide, who is a decent country, who is a great country, and who is a rogue state. And I understand that under the present situation in the world, when the world is really becoming multipolar, they are losing, they have a feeling that they are losing this ability to decide for everyone. This is a philosophical issue. We take it with patience, but this is painful for them, unfortunately.
Well,
that's why we prefer in politics to be guided not by hysterical statements, not by hysterical Russophobic rhetoric, but by business-like approach. If we want to save lives, we have to be very pragmatic and very specific.